Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, a few days ago a friend challenged me to find a graphics card for just $20 US. Alright, I'm lying, I have no friends, I challenged myself, but I thought $20 would be a pretty challenging amount of money. The reason I do it in US dollars sometimes is because it's even harder for me because that translates to about 16, 17 British pounds, so finding a graphics card for that sort of money, and usually you'd think you'd be looking at sort of GT 710 territory, but I've actually managed to find something a little bit better than that. Of course, I did have to use my imagination a little bit and opt for something that wasn't exactly 100% working when I found it on eBay. So let's talk about what I got, how I sort of fixed it, and let's see what that card can do. This is the GTX 760, the 2GB GDDR5 version. I think this came in a 4GB variant as well. They are a lot rarer and harder to find, if they even exist at all, and I didn't just make that up. But yeah, this is the EVGA version, the blower style version. I always wanted one of these cards when they were brand new, and I managed to find this one for just £13.99. That's under $20 as well, less than €20 for those of you in mainland Europe. And to be honest, I think that's an absolute bargain. So what's wrong with it? Well, this card apparently displayed some sort of error when trying to install the drivers, and from experience I can say that that is definitely true. First of all, the screen looked like this when I plugged the card in, and this is no way to enjoy any games. Second of all, when I did try and install the drivers, the card just refused. The drivers said they had installed, but we were still getting all these green lines on the screen, and the resolution hadn't changed, and every time I tried to fire up a game it just said we cannot run on the Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, basically, so the drivers weren't properly installed. I then thought about a fix that I had implemented before. It's not really a fix, but it's more of a temporary solution, and that is to, of course, get out the heat gun. The first step is to disassemble the card and just blast the GPU itself with a heat gun. This really isn't a long-term solution, and you shouldn't be selling cards on after doing this, really, unless you're totally honest about how you fixed it, of course. After a minute of blasting this thing with about 1000 degrees worth of heat, which was actually quite pleasant because it was freezing cold outside, yeah, I put the card back in the system and it worked. I cannot believe how many times I've actually done this to fix an old dying graphics card, but as you can see here, it worked. The card does make a bit of a funny noise, that's probably just because it's the blower style card, but it actually worked, and for £13.99 British pence, I had found a working GTX 760. And these of course still retail for about £50 to £60 normally. Unfortunately, the 760 is a bit of an obsolete card. It supports DX11 and no more than that, so that means that certain games aren't going to start at all, and the games that do start might display graphical problems as well, but you'll soon see what I mean in a minute. Not the best card to buy in 2022, but for the price I paid, I can't complain. So let's see what it can do and what sort of games it can play and at which settings. Now, the first game I tried was Cyberpunk 2077. This recently got an FSR 2.1 update, and as you can see, it completely breaks the game. This is like playing, well, this is usually what I see when I'm not wearing my glasses. So yeah, it's not the best experience, but it meant we couldn't use FSR, so instead I actually had to switch to 720p native and run the game with the lowest settings. Even with 720p, I'm surprised we hit at least 40 FPS with the 760. Remember, it is a 2GB card, and it's a card that's no longer supported. It isn't just sort of obsolete because it doesn't support DX12 anymore. It doesn't support game-ready drivers, though just a few days before making this video, it did actually receive another security update. Now, it says it's running in D3D12 from the MSI Afterburn overlay, but I think it only supports it on a certain level. You don't get all those DX12 features. So yeah, this is very much a DX11 card according to GPU-Z. That's not to say you can't have fun though, because this is still capable of playing those older AAA online multiplayer games just fine, such as Battlefield 1 here. I recently purchased this for about £4 here in the UK. It's actually on sale again at the time of this video in the autumn sale on Steam, as is Battlefield 5. Definitely recommend picking those up, even if you have them on other stores. I mean, it's always good to get your collection built up on Steam, isn't it? 60 FPS here with the medium settings. For a more competitive experience, you could certainly go with low if you wanted to, just to alleviate some of those dips below 60. But I mean, this is a very solid experience, and I was able to remain somewhat competitive as well. The game still looks fantastic in 2022, I should add. Now, Warzone 2.0 was absolutely broken, no matter whether we had FSR on, any other form of upscaling on, or whether we had it switched off. As you can see by the visuals here, the grass is totally non-existent. It's just a selection of multicolour tiles that seem to coat the environments. I did try with FSR on and FSR off, but we had no luck in Warzone 2. This is probably because the card does lack certain DX12 features that it needs, because as you can see again, it does say it's running in D3D12 mode, but it can't be fully because there isn't the support there. That said, it is still sort of playable because we do get a pretty solid frame rate on average, and you can see enemies on screen, things like that with these visual settings. So it's not totally unplayable with the 760, just not visually that impressive, especially if you're running through a lot of grassy countryside, which seems to take up quite a lot of the map. So yeah, visually not brilliant, playability not so bad. The next game I tried was Mafia Definitive Edition. This is of course the remake of the popular early 2000s Mafia. I absolutely love this remake. I think it's one of the best remakes around. Graphics wise, it still holds up fairly well. I should have gone with a lower res, but I went with the 1080p, selected the low preset, which basically puts everything at the low settings, including anti-aliasing and textures. But in all honesty, I think it still looks really good. There isn't that much difference between low and medium. In fact, there's not much difference between low and high in terms of the visual settings in this game. And it does mean that we can hit at least 30 FPS if we do choose low. Once again though, I think 1080p is probably a bit too high for this older card. But if you locked it at 30 FPS, it would feel a lot smoother. If not, 720p with closer to 60 FPS would probably be doable as well. The Witcher 3 is of course older. This was running with the medium settings here, with the low post-processing options. I think I'll have the exact details up on the screen, as well as the average and percentile lows of course, but I'm actually quite surprised at how well this held up. Sometimes this can be a little bit stuttery, especially in these busier city areas, but we were able to hold a pretty steady frame rate here. As you can see, the occasional dip is reflected by that 0.1% figure, but it's nothing that was off-putting in any way, and the longer you play, the longer or the better the performance sort of becomes. It irons itself out after a little while. Again, for the price I paid for the card, I mean, I can't complain. If this was running at 30 FPS, I couldn't complain. £13.99. I'm not saying go out and buy broken cards, because it's not always going to work out. I bought a broken 1660 Super recently that I thought I could fix with the heat gun, because my knowledge doesn't go much beyond that, and I didn't fix anything. I just wasted £80. So yeah, not always a good idea. Surprisingly, Red Dead Redemption 2 also worked at not quite native 1080p, 75% scaling here, so not bad. Low settings, the 2 gigs of VRAM is, just like in most other games, quite problematic in this one, but we still were able to hit at least 30 FPS. TAA was also set to medium, so we could alleviate some of those jagged edges here. The game does look a little bit better for it as well, and performance isn't impacted that much, so I thought we'd leave TAA enabled. The textures look like mud, to be honest. Anything other than ultra textures in this game, they really don't look that good at all. Even high textures don't look brilliant. Everything on low then is going to give you a playable experience if you're happy with 30 FPS, but 60, probably out of the question. Last but not least then, we have the free multiplayer online competitive title that is Fortnite. This one runs really well with at least 60 FPS. No problems here with the lowest settings and the epic view distance. The epic view distance I think is quite important because it allows you to see enemies far away. Anti-aliasing is also enabled. TAA is enabled just to iron out some of those jagged edges again. The game still looks pretty good with these settings. There are a few little dips and drops here and there, but nothing that stops you from remaining competitive. I mean, I'm not the best at this game by a long shot, but even I was able to wipe out a few enemies with these settings and when using this card. All in all then, the 760, pretty good bargain on this one I think. Challenge, I think, passed. Challenge completed, whatever you want to say. I think I got pretty lucky with this, and I am surprised that the heat gun managed to fix it. For how long, I'm not sure, but there we go. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.